A very good evening to you all. My name is Darren Joe, and I am the host of ASE. I never quite know how to introduce myself at the beginning of these podcasts because I'm speaking to a wall, but I'm trying to imagine the audience in front of me. It's always quite funny. It's like, hey guys, what's up? Or hey world. But I think this time it's a good evening to you all in the room, even though you're not really in the room. Anyways, ACE, this is a show about the self-employed creative life and how you can do your best work. I know that working on your own is lonely, difficult, full of ambiguity, and we want to help you out with that process. We want to help you do your best work. So this week, there will not be an interview. This week, it's story time. And the name of this story is Live the Questions. Another name for this story is Unsolicited Advice I'm Giving My Friends. The Vietnamese have taught me many things. One is how to do absolutely nothing. You have never seen so many people in a hurry on their motorbikes, honking, careening, cutting others off, fighting for 1 foot of space at the traffic signal, just so that they can sit on a shady sidewalk and sip an iced coffee. It's hilarious. This pastime of sitting on small plastic stools on the sidewalk and watching the world pass by is one of my favorite things to do in Vietnam, and it's something I've learned how to do well here, living in Saigon. So the other day after dance practice, actually this was more than a month ago, before COVID happened, a bunch of us salsa dancers after practice went to Bananas, which has, in my opinion, the best smoothies in all of Saigon. And we sat down there on the sidewalk in our small plastic stools and smoothies. And Angelica posed the question to our group of 5. She said, what's your one personal project, not work-related, that you're doing right now? It's a great question, a question that invited us to share more about ourselves and perhaps be a bit vulnerable. So I want to share some of the answers from that group. Abby said, basically, I'm summarizing their answers. She said, I'm jealous of others who have found their purpose and are doing cool shit. What's my purpose? Angelica said, I want to feel more grounded in my values. I've been doing photography for over 10 years and I'm not totally thrilled with the work I'm doing now. Julia said, I want to feel more wholesome and with less anxiety. Julia had left her home country of Russia, left her family, and left a relationship there to search for a different way of living and a different home. And Mark said, I just want to be satisfied with what I'm doing. I want more patience. So from these responses, I think that I can speak for most people, that we seek lives of purpose, grounded in our values. We yearn to feel wholesome and satisfied. And this group was all in their mid-20s and at the very beginning of their search. Opportunity and possibility stretched out before them. And moving to Vietnam was just the first step of their journeys. After a period of wandering and seeking, getting lost, coming back, and finding, they'd figure it all out. They'd reach their destination. Or would they? Actually, they each reminded me of myself. Abby reminded me of myself as a fresh college grad, armed with a Princeton degree with no idea of what I wanted to do. Angelica reminded me of myself as a late 20-something, having cycled through 3 corporate jobs and a startup and still searching for a better work situation. Julia reminded me of myself as a mid-30-something, having worked and lived in 6 countries, yet still searching for a place to call home. And Mark reminded me of me now. Still unsatisfied, perpetually unsatisfied, impatient, feeling like half a person, incomplete. I wanted to tell them that night on the sidewalk, but I didn't have the right words, that those gnawing feelings of discomfort, anxiety, and restlessness, they never go away. Even when you're on the mountaintop, you're living your best life, you're surrounded by close friends, lovers, opportunity, adventure, you'll still feel like something's missing. And even when you're in the valley, alone, lost, a failure, you could actually be most aligned with your purpose and values, although it doesn't seem that way. And you'll look back and laugh at those times when you had so much courage. I wanted to tell them that the questions never go away. The searching, it never stops. And that's okay. So this is the unsolicited advice I would have told them that night. Let's start with Mark. Mark, the charismatic artist, the guy who can make a video in minutes that is incredible and moving and exciting to watch. The guy who is the bachata champion of Vietnam. The guy who I imagine his brain is just exploding with fireworks left and right. It's almost like he has too many fireworks in his brain that he can't communicate any one idea. He's that sharp, that creative, that type of person. This is what I wish I had told Mark. I mean, I could cycle through my whole story and tell him how I'm still not satisfied after having tried so many different types of jobs and so many different types of work. But yeah, basically, here I am, 20 years after college, still not satisfied. And what I've learned is that my ratio of satisfaction to dissatisfaction has always hovered around 75% satisfied to 25% dissatisfied. And that hasn't changed. Even from when I was a fresh college grad, to when I was in high school, to when I was starting my first business in my late 20s, to when I was living in Colombia and living this amazing life, to now, I'm always about 75% satisfied. And there's been a lot of research that says your base level of happiness is genetically determined. Like 50% of it is genetically determined. But this is what I would recommend, Mark, is you do what I did. And at the end of each day, you rank it. You rank it either a -2, this day fucking sucked, or you could rank it a 2, this day was one of the best days I've ever had, and everything in between. 0 would be, it's a neutral day. 1 would be pretty good, and -1 would be, it was pretty sucky, right? And if you capture just some brief notes of what you did that day, plus your ranking, you will see over time what activities and people and places make you rank your day a 1 or a 0 or a -2. And what I've found is that my days basically average out to a 1. I'm pretty happy with my day, but I'm not totally happy with it. And that's been really instructive for me. That's been really insightful for me to be comfortable with the fact that I'll always be a bit unsatisfied, no matter how many sales I make, no matter how many vacations I go on, no matter how many cool experiences I have. I'm always going to be about a 1. I'm always going to be about 75% satisfied. So to Mark, I hope that exercise helps you, but do know that a part of you will always be unsatisfied. All right, to Julia. So Julia again mentioned that she wants to feel more wholesome with less anxiety. And Julia left Russia, her family in Russia, and a relationship there to find a home that matched her better, where she could feel more wholesome. And Julia is an intellectual. I passed her an article by David Brooks titled "The Nuclear Family Was a Mistake," as well as Sebastian Junger's Tribe book, and she devoured both, within days and wanted to talk about them. And this is what I would tell Julia. I'd refer her to another book called The Labyrinth of Solitude by Octavio Paz. And this is what he wrote. He wrote that solitude is the profoundest fact of the human condition. Man is the only being who knows he is alone. His nature consists in his longing to realize himself in another. Man is nostalgia and a search for communion. Julia, I've spent my entire working life searching for a home. Singapore, Shanghai, New York, Beijing, Taipei, Singapore, Vietnam, Colombia, Vietnam. I've always felt adrift. Even at home in the US, I felt like a foreigner and out of place. That feeling like you're a stranger, like you don't quite belong, it never goes away. And I've tried to make it go away, right? And sometimes I temporarily forget it when I'm with a certain person, when I'm in a certain place, when I'm doing a certain activity. But it always comes back, no matter how wonderful each of these things are. It's a part of me. This condition of solitude, I can't tell you how many times I've been alone at night on my bed, staring at the ceiling in the darkness and thinking, would anyone know if I just died in bed? If I just passed away right here? I remember first having this thought when I was in Shanghai studying Chinese when I was about 24. I was so very alone that fall. And yeah, that question popped up in my mind. That was a scary night. And I've had that same thought maybe once every couple years, if not once a year, no matter where I am. And I'm sure you already know this, but the sooner you can embrace that part of yourself, to know that you will always have this longing to be complete, that solitude is one of the profoundest facts of the human condition. As soon as you can accept that and know that even people who might not seem that way on the outside, who have beautiful families, beautiful relationships, who seem completely at home in their communities, they might also, in fact, I know they do, have moments where they feel the pain of that solitude as well. So you are not alone, and there's nothing wrong with you, just as there is nothing wrong with me. It's just a part of our existence. Now to Angelica, who has been taking photos, who's been a professional photographer since she was 13. Can you imagine? Gosh, I'm so amazed by people like Angelica, who are so in tune with what they love to do, who are so artistic, and who have already done so much by age, say 23, whatever she is. It's too young. I don't keep track of numbers that low. But yeah, Angelica has been doing professional photography for 10 years, and now she's searching for something else that might fulfill her more, that is more grounded in her values. And this is what I would tell Angelica. Not that she needs to hear it, but maybe I need to hear it more than her. And that is, there are infinite versions of us, infinite yous. And I'm stealing this from Bill Burnett and Dave Evans' fantastic book, Designing Your Life. And they talk about a dysfunctional belief that many of us have about our careers. And that's this: I need to figure out my best possible life, make a plan, and then execute it. Well, actually, the reframe of that belief should be, there are multiple great lives and plans within me, and I get to choose which one to build my way forward to the next. The truth is that we will live many different lives in this lifetime. And I think this idea of infinite yous is so liberating, because we can get stuck in a narrative of who we are supposed to be, who we are now, who we should be. And it's not like one single point on each of those timelines, right? It's not a line. There's actually infinite versions of us, infinite possibilities for our future. So when we look back and think with regret, perhaps, oh, I was supposed to be this. I was supposed to be the professional athlete. I was supposed to be the management consultant, whatever it is. That was only one version of you. You can let that go. And what you're doing now, whether you're thrilled with it or not, I'm a photographer. That's only one version of you too. You can let go of that. And when you think about the future, who you want to be, instead of paralyzing yourselves with, okay, I have to be an entrepreneur. This is it. This is my path. And if I don't succeed at this, I'm a failure. No. Well, actually, there's infinite paths. So why don't you pick 3? 1, what you want to do. 2, what you would do if the first life was suddenly taken away from you, something completely different. And 3, what you would do if money or image were no object to you. That's prompts for 3 different lives that you could live, and imagine those out. And then try one. This is about prototyping and adjusting along the way. That's really what life is, right? It's not a singular destination. It's infinite destinations that can be reached infinite ways. And I think this really frees ourselves from a lot of stress when we're thinking about starting new things or transitioning into a different career. So infinite use, Angelica. I know I needed to hear that more than you, but I hope that helps. Finally, we get to Abby. And Abby said, yeah, I'm jealous of others who have found their purpose and who are doing cool shit. What's my purpose? And Abby is just full of wit. She has a great sense of humor. She's the type of person that's kind of sitting in the background, just watching the craziness of every situation, but just a really kind-hearted person and someone who's just stepping into her power. And so this is what I would tell Abby. You can't find your purpose, and seeking it, as I have for decades, is probably a waste of time. A better way to think about it is remembering your purpose. So if you have kept a journal, look back on it. What were your deepest desires and your dreams at different ages? And I realized that mine haven't really changed. From 17 to 27 to 37, I've known deep down what I'm here to do. The problem was I didn't have enough confidence to pursue this truth wholeheartedly until my 30s, because I cared much more about status and others' opinions than my own. And therefore, I was distracted, so I couldn't hear it clearly. And I intentionally distracted myself to avoid listening because I didn't want to hear it. So, Abby, I would say that purpose is less a search and more a remembering, a whispering in your ear. And it will come back to you or you to it subtly. It will leave clues when you're on a beach alone in the dark ocean looking at the stars, at one with the elements, when you're in nature, or when you're bored out of your fucking mind. Yes, emptiness is the key, literally and figuratively. An empty day, an empty desk, an empty mind, an empty calendar. In this emptiness, what do you drift to, and what chooses you? So, again, it's not something you can seek or find. Trust me, I've tried for a long time. Rather, it's more about watching and listening. I also want to share another perspective that might help. This comes from Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. One of the classic books that people refer to when it comes to, what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of my life? And Viktor Frankl survived the Holocaust. And there he saw men who questioned, what's the point of living? What's the point of life? Can only imagine the horror of that situation. And this is what Viktor Frankl concluded. What was really needed was a fundamental change in our attitude toward life. We had to learn ourselves, and furthermore, we had to teach the despairing men in the concentration camps that it did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who were being questioned by life, daily and hourly. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. Wow. I remember reading that maybe 5 years ago and kind of meditating on it for a whole day, that it doesn't matter what we expect from life, but what's more important is, what does life expect from us? And that answer, kind of in line with this idea of having infinite lives and infinite use, will depend on each person and on each circumstance. So it's completely different for everyone. And in addition to listening for it, a simple way to kind of change our mindset is to ask, well, what is life demanding from me now? What do I owe to life? Whew. And when I think of that, it gives you this present and action-focused mindset about what you can do right now. And that's usually to help someone or to love someone. I mean, to keep it simple, right? So yeah, what does life expect from you, Abby? And I'm ready for your witty comeback the next time I see you. So in conclusion, I just want to say, again, the whole reason for this episode is I want to give the unsolicited advice to my friends that the search for purpose, values, and feeling wholesome and satisfied, this search never stops. The anxiety never goes away. A part of you will always be unsatisfied. Others will amaze you, and yes, you will be jealous of them. Abby, you will find your purpose. Julia, you will find your home. Angelica, you will find work closer aligned with your values. And yes, Mark, you will be satisfied. Briefly. And then you'll soon be unsatisfied again. So strive, search, be impatient, all those things, but don't feel any less whole or worthwhile. Be more self-compassionate. I wish I had been in my 20s and 30s as I felt these same emotions as you. I would have gone through decades, years worth of the same struggles, but there would have been a lot less forcing, a lot less stress, a lot less self-denial, and a lot less self-punishment. And the best advice I've found here to help us take care of ourselves is to treat yourself as you would a close friend. So the next time, perhaps if you're getting down on yourself with any of these things, ask, would you speak to a close friend the same way you're speaking to yourself? Probably not. And the sooner that you embrace this pain and duality of life, the more you can enjoy it. And ironically, the quicker you can move forward, because nothing is separate, right? Lost and found, satisfied and unsatisfied, whole and incomplete. These things need each other, like yin and yang. And we're all dancers, so we can learn to dance with these feelings instead of trying to eliminate them, shut them out, or avoid them. We can learn to dance with them and embrace them because they're always going to be there. This episode is as much a reminder to myself as advice for you. So thank you, friends, for sharing your personal projects and for your example. And I want to end with a quote from Rainer Maria Rilke, who's an Austrian poet that I've been turning around in my head for the past week. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. We'll see you next week on ACE. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on whatever podcast app or platform you use. It helps more people find the show, and I would sincerely appreciate it. Thanks again, and remember you can find all the show notes and links mentioned in this episode at upstartist.tv/ASE. That's ASE. Hope to see you over there to continue the conversation.